You said it. Yeah.
What are you even talking about? Oh, let's see. We're going to talk about something that if I'm honest with you, it's not a chance I would have ever invented this. I am just absolutely amazed that anybody thought of this and that they're actually doing it. And so, Brian White, lovely to have you here.
It is a pleasure, Randy, for at least one of us.
Well, all right. Having said that, all right. Well, listen, we've got this thing called a cyber cab that is going to be hitting our shelves fairly soon, maybe 6, 8, 9, 10 months, something like that. We'll be seeing these little guys popping out of the factory somewhere, maybe Austin, maybe Mexico, maybe who knows where. But anyway, we know that they're coming. And what we do know is that there's a patent now that Tesla has secured. I guess, was this a patent approved or was this a patent pending?
I don't recall which, but it was very few patents are rejected.
Yes, well, yeah, especially if you got a good patent department. Anyway, this was for how do we even say this? A self-cleaning interior for an automobile, self-cleaning interior. I'm going to admit that I have not read, listened to, watched, looked up the patent or anything. I figured I'd just wait and let you explain it. What in
Thank you.
Are we even talking about? A self-cleaning interior?
Doesn't it make sense rather than having a whole fleet of humans or Optimi to clean your cab, you have it do it itself? The problem with this is it's more about disinfecting, which is a step in the right direction, but it's not the same as having elbow grease. So when you have a lab that produces new ideas constantly, you have to have patent lawyers on staff to just patent everything all the time.
Sure.
And remember, with Tesla, it's not so much about protecting the IP as it is having the ability to use it themselves. We saw a recent situation with a patent where one of their suppliers is accused of having taken Tesla's ideas and preemptively patenting them themselves. Unlike copyright, where if you can just prove that you wrote it, or created it, you own it. With patents, you have to actually submit them. Having the idea is not good enough. You have to actually submit the paperwork.
So, Brian, I wanted to stop you just for a quick second because you're 100% right. I just wanted to expand on it a little tiny bit, and that is it changes the presumption. So if I can have a brand new idea, I can have a clean, self-cleaning car. I can go ahead and make it without a patent. And I've got my drawings, I've got them dated, I've got all kinds of ways to prove when I came up with the idea. And that will be enough to potentially win against some jerk that might come along and claim that they had better art or prior art, and they actually didn't. But if you want to change but that puts the presumption in the hands of the plaintiff in this case, the person who's trying to mess with you. If you want to change the presumption over to yourself, then you file the patent, get the patent approved. Now it puts all the burden on the other guy. Okay, so having said all that, okay.
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate that perspective. The second thing with that is, with this particular battery patent, it means that Tesla would not have the ability to allow other companies to use it.
Right.
Where, maybe Tesla themselves could continue using it. It was theirs. Maybe that company would try and fight them. But so with this, what you'll see a lot of companies do is filing patents for things they may or may not ever make, that may or may not work as intended or within the cost projections expected. So the fact that there is a patent for a self-cleaning cab doesn't mean there will be a self-cleaning cab. If you told hotels, look, we own the patent on Roomba, get rid of all the vacuum cleaners we have, they would not do it. Those vacuum cleaners are not going to do the kind of job that you need done in an industrial setting. There are self-cleaning toilets, public toilets, that I've seen demos of that come in two varieties. reasonably priced and completely ineffective, and terrifying in how aggressive their scope is, where it might as well be inside of a typhoon. Neither of those would work for a cyber cab. Disinfecting is great if it's a light duty. If we just want to clear out the odors, that's one matter. But if we're trying to remove actual like spilled curry or spilled burritos or spilled open face grilled cheese sandwiches off the interior, you're going to need more than a puff of disinfectant. You're not going to Lysol that out. So this may improve the experience, but I don't think it stands the opportunity to replace the people who would otherwise be cleaning these vehicles. To roll out a RoboTaxi fleet, you're still going to need depots for service, for inspection, for maintenance. And a lot of that can be handled in smart ways. When you get in, maybe there's a touch screen, maybe it's on your phone that says, please document any deficiencies in the state of the vehicle. And maybe you could say, I reject this vehicle because, and they would just pull that one out, send it straight back to the depot. Another one comes dispatched to your location. Away you go. That's something you could do that I don't know if Waymo has that option. I'd be not surprised at all if they do, but it would make sense. You'd need that. And that does reduce the labor, reduce the complexity of deploying something like that. So I think that could be one good step, but you still got to send it somewhere for a human or incredibly sophisticated bot intervention. Humans already work today. We can count on that. And if a human can do it, that means at some point the robots could do it. So we don't have to wait for the magical robot revolution to happen in order to get RoboTaxi in motion.
So one of the things that this did get my brain to thinking about when I just read the headline was, okay, this means though that there are people somewhere in some department somewhere, and maybe a group of people at Tesla that are thinking about this cleaning process, whether it's interior, exterior. They're thinking about it from a first principle standpoint. The normal way you would think about this would be, oh, where do I need to send the darn thing to get it cleaned? And then how much of a system do I need to set up there to get it done? How much of that's going to be human? How much is going to be robot? What's going to happen in the future? Those would all be kind of the normal, everybody could think of that ideas. But if you go back to first principles, reducing the interior, doing what you can to the interior or the exterior of the car to reduce either the amount or the complexity of the cleaning job would be next level, typical Tesla.
Yes. And it would also be if they end up not doing it, that's not a surprise either, because it may have unintended complexities. You may remember Tesla had patented a method by which they could cast an entire vehicle chassis, but they never did it, because if they did so, and there are prototypes of those out there, there are companies who will be doing whole vehicle casting. But what it does is introduce a redundant structure with the battery. The battery's already a structural element. Now you've got two structures, one of which was overly complex and a machine that costs 3 times what it should have if you'd just gotten smaller casting machines capable of joining to the structural battery. So not all brilliant ideas even are ideas that make sense when you get down to the financials. I mean, we could cast the whole vehicle. It'd be cool, but would it be necessary? Would it save money? Would it save weight? A problem with that one is you would probably increase the scrap rate. You would have a lot of castings where if any little thing goes wrong, just grind it up, start over. That's a lot of waste.
So super interesting. I just think it was if whether or not they ever do it, it was such a to me as a manufacturer, as somebody who loves product, it was such a complete like, oh my gosh, this is something that wasn't even on my radar, and it'll be interesting to see. I'm guessing that there will be interior elements, and maybe even we've talked about exterior, like what material could they use that would require the least amount of exterior washing, cleaning, whatever. But the interior, it was not on my radar at all.
It's right back to the best blank is no blank. The
Yeah.
best lot attendant is no lot attendant. The best paint is no paint. Could we see a carbon composite exterior that's as strong as aluminum or steel, but is less prone to damage, that doesn't have paint because it's molded with the color already in it? And if you scratch it, all you've got is a scratch that's the same color as the vehicle. Those are all very real possibilities. And yeah, if you can reduce the number of interior cleanings by 2%, that's going to be millions of dollars within years, and realistically far more than that.
Right, right. Okay, well, since we're talking about Cyber Cab,
Johnny Cab, that's right.
We're talking about the Cyber Cab. We've talked all about ideas about whether it'll be two-seater, four-seater, and all that before. So I don't want to revisit the same vomit. Anyway, I don't want to go back there. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But we do need this one little tiny thing that before we can have any cyber cabs, and that would be FSD level 5. So over the weekend, hundreds, well, I don't know, hundreds. I probably have looked at 2025. I haven't looked at all the videos from beginning to end. I've kind of looked at their overall assessment without watching all of them. You've probably watched more than I have. I don't know. But what would you say going, I'm assuming you don't have it yet. You don't have 4.3?
Correct. I'm still on 12.3.6,
Yep.
which is doing great for me. There were a number of videos. There were so many videos showing 12.4.2, 1, 2, that I assumed I must be the last person alive on the dot threes. I posted about it on X, only to find out that there were only something like 100 people on the dot 4 branches. And that made me feel better,
Yep.
of course. But the people who got 12.4.2 said it had some regressions. It had some uncomfortable behavior, some hard starts and stops. They said, I get it. I get why this one's not going out wide. And then the subsequent version came out. And I've seen videos saying that this is also not the step forward we were expecting. It is a step in a different direction, but not forward. So I am okay with the majority of us waiting on 12.3.6 until we get there. I've seen people claim that internally FSD is solved. Now, I say claimed, they're claiming based on nothing, based on pure speculation. I don't believe it is solved internally. I don't believe you would be investing in billions of dollars of new compute capacity if it's already solved. I think if it is already solved, they would be able to rededicate.
It would be solved.
Yeah, they would. Well, they'd be able to rededicate that space, that compute capacity, to either customers or to solving Dojo or to other things, because AI can do amazing things. If you look at possible even injection molding flow patterns, AI can come up with better ways to do that, that result in lighter castings, that result in less scrap, that result in just better output. But I don't believe we're there.
So after a weekend when we saw all kinds of things happening, I mean, it was just every time we turned around, we got the Reno thing, we've got the Model 3 refresh, I mean, Model Y refresh, all kinds, such a wild weekend. But when you just mentioned a minute ago having FSD solved, I thought one of the most important statements of the entire weekend, one of the most important pieces of news, and it is not headlined anywhere, was when Elon repeats himself, 27 times? I don't know how many times he put it up there, is that the only thing that matters, I don't have the quote in front of me, but roughly speaking, the only thing that matters is getting FSD to be better than a human driver. And people say, well, what about this? And and then he just put up the same quote. And they say, well, but how about? And he goes, no, that's all that matters.
Obviously, I think you and I would agree with him. I see people say, well, you take your Dan O'Dowds and whatnot and other jugglers and balloon animal makers, and you'll see that they like to find bizarre edge cases and say, what if this was everything? right? But it's not everything. That's the whole point. It's either safer or it isn't. Well, it isn't. Right, except it is. We have numbers. I don't care what your feelings say. We have the actual data that we can actually analyze. And we can see that today, a human supervised FSD implementation is the safest configuration of control on the road. That will improve over time. We are getting already to the point where on the highway, at least in places I'm familiar with, I don't have to think about what FSD is going to do. I know what it's going to do. I know when to supervise more intently, and I know when I can use my brain for other things. I'm still there. My hands are still on the wheel. I'm still able to observe. But just like if I was a passenger in the vehicle, I know when I need to say to the driver, hey man, pay attention to this. And, or yell cone, cone, cone for us to still hit the cone because there was no way to avoid it. It fell off a truck.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So if Elon is saying, okay, over and over again, it has to be safer than a human. This is not the argument on the other side, but in other words, in addition to being as safe as a human, we also want it to be comfortable for the humans in the vehicle to the extent that they're watching what's going on. We don't want them to be, oh, well, we got here safely, but 17 times we thought the truck was going to kill us. So we want that feeling of comfort and safety. We also want it to be comfortable. As my wife likes to say, her dad used to tell her that, if you want your passengers to feel comfortable, think about having an egg, in the back seat sitting on a platform, and you don't want that egg to fall over. And so we want it to be comfortable in that way. We want it to be such that it's a great drive, a great ride, a great drive. And so those are always, and we want it to be reasonably aggressive, but not too aggressive. Human-like, people, refer to it. So those are all things that are, tell me what you want and I'll give it to you tomorrow. But if I want all four of those things, it might take a little longer.
It might be impossible. You might be asking for different things for different people. There was a great video I watched about the man who was hired to find the best spaghetti sauce. It was Prego and Ragu, and they were in a war to dominate to see what was the best. So he tried a little bit more sugar, a little bit less sugar, a little more oregano, a little more mushroom, a little more everything. And the results were so noisy he couldn't find it until he realized there is no best spaghetti sauce. There's best spaghetti sauces.
Yes.
What we need is, let's start with 5. Let's expand to 10. Now, if you go to your grocery aisle, you will find there are hundreds of different varieties, and some of them come and go. Some of them are chunkier. Some of them are rustic, and all of them sell to someone. So that's the answer, is sometimes you need all the things. When I was on my recent 6,000-mile cross-country tour with FSD, I found it behaved a lot better in some places than others, but the aggressive driving in some places was unacceptable. I've got, things with me. I've got maybe my watch is charging, and sometimes it would behave so aggressively that it would dump all my things into the back seat or the passenger seat. I do not drive that aggressive. That is too aggressive. But it's not unsafe. It's more like they modeled the driving behavior on a cabbie, and I will not tell you. I mean, those guys can be aggressive.
Depends. And outside the United States, they can be even more aggressive. I've seen things in Italy and Curacao and other places that made my eyeballs were like bigger than they are on a great roller coaster.
All right. So yeah, I'm very excited for it. I don't know what you wish for me to do with that information, but I'll go ahead and take a note of it and make sure it gets into my journal.
Well, speaking of eyeballs bigger than a roller coaster, did you ride in did I see that maybe you took a ride in a
roadster
the other day?
I did.
A roadster.
I did. It was so exciting. I had a chance to ride in one in Michigan and I declined. I said, give that seat to Lars from Best in Tesla because in Denmark, he will never see another roadster. And I'm confident I will have another opportunity, which just 8 days later, I did. So it was a lot of fun. It is a very stiff, unrefined sort of ride. The traction control's amazing, the handling's amazing, but it feels like a ground level roadster. It is the lowest car I have ever been in, which is saying a lot considering the battery, is right at your back, and it's a whole lot of fun. And it's peppy. It's peppy. I'm sure at the time it was pretty exciting,
Yeah.
but now my grocery getter is quicker, of course. But it was a lot of fun. And really my objective with going to Gruber Motors was not to get a ride in a roadster, although that was a hoot and a half. But my objective was to get expert information, which I was able to do, and get a few things off the record that were pretty interesting as well.
Oh, off the record, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Always teasing, Brian, always teasing. Are you going to share any of it or just
Oh, no, not now. Not now.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So we've been teased again by Brian White. And with that in mind, with just that tease, as we leave again until next week. You sure, Brian? Not anything? Not
No, it's all background information. The idea is these are the things that make me able to form a more complete opinion. So when I tell you a thing about a company, you can know that I'm actually telling you things from firsthand experience, things that I actually do know and am not just guessing.
Okay. All right. So we're not going to dig it out of you, huh?
Not on camera.
Not on camera. Okay. Well, okay, then that will be enough of that. And Brian, thank you as always for joining me on this Tuesday, which was recorded on Monday. And to all of you out there, whatever day this is, and it might not be Tuesday because sometimes we interrupt for breaking news. Maybe Brian will call me back and say, okay, we can break the news now. I don't know. Anyway, it's been great talking to you.